What's going on, everybody? It's Matt Fortier with Keller Williams Realty. Thank you so much for joining me. Can you believe it? 2021 is almost in the books. Here we are, 9 days until Christmas. And you know what? All kinds of stuff has gone on this year. And what better time to look back on the past year and look forward into 2022? Again, full disclosure, I don't have a crystal ball. Well, I do, but it's not as precise as I would love it to be. So let's get into this. Well, I told you I got the crystal ball, and it's a little dingy. It needs some cleaning, maybe a little bit of Windex. So, so let's take a look. This is the big annual review and looking ahead. Now, if we go back to 2021 and you were in the real estate market either selling or buying, or maybe you're trying to buy, this might have been what it looked like to you. It was kind of crazy. Now, I haven't seen this show. Well, I watched maybe 10 minutes of it, but I digress. Though I have it on good authority that some people may have felt like the Sacramento housing market, especially in the first half of this year, may have been a little cutthroat. Maybe. It's definitely been very active. But let's take a look at all the factors of 2021 and looking at from an economic and market standpoint. And let's start off at the top with employment. Numbers just came out just recently. Unemployment's just above 4%, which is great news. There's definitely opportunity out there for people who want to work. One of the things that I do want to qualify this with is, while we've seen that this is people that have all lost their jobs and are now coming back to work, whatever it may be. The thing that we do want to take a look at as hey, we're getting there, but we still have some room to cover. It's the number behind the number, and that's what's called the workforce participation rate, and that's because the unemployment numbers are measured by the people working versus the people not working who are actively looking to work and are of age. So if you're retired or you're 5 years old, you're not in that number. Though, if you are, say, 30 years old and you're not working and you stopped looking, well, that's a different thing. You're not counted in that. So got to look behind the numbers, and that's where this workforce participation rate comes into play. And that's at about 61.8%. Now, of course, and that's measuring basically people of working age that could work, that are either looking, thinking of looking, not looking, whatever it may be. This is a more accurate, more broad measurement of the workforce. To give you some context, at the beginning of the 1980s, in 1980, at the end of that 1970s malaise, our workforce participation rate was 52%. Compared to now, definitely we're not back there, thankfully. Though prior to the pandemic, February 2020, our workforce participation rate was 63.3%. So there's a substantial amount. I don't know what 300 some odd million people. Do the math. 1 point something percent difference. Excuse me, had a little itch on my nose. There's still a lot of people out there that could be working that aren't. And again, I'm going to try to be apolitical. I'm not saying anybody's fault doing this, doing that. That's just the state of the economy right now, state of the job market. There's still a lot of people that could be working that aren't. And you've probably seen it all over the place. You go to a restaurant, you go to a store, the signs are up there. Help wanted. Hey, come and apply. People are offering some substantial pay for jobs that need to be filled. And if we look at it nationwide, it's about 11, at least as of October, the number of job openings was in excess of 11 million. 11 million job openings in the United States. So we've got opportunities there. Now let's just see if we can fill those positions. So the next one, prices and inflation. Now, if you've gone to the grocery store, you've gone to the pumps, you know that prices are higher. You know, gas is about almost double as it was a year ago. Price of food, all of your staples. And we're looking at this point, as of I think October is 6.2%. I believe the November numbers had it like 6.8%. That's substantial. Obviously, that is a substantial increase out of your budget, which may impact your ability to pay for housing that you like. Now, again, it is what it is. Hopefully, we'll see some relief in the future. But again, I don't have that crystal ball. So one of the things, and this ties into the next one, which is supply chain. And in fact, this is a good, one of the big items of supply chain as it impacts inflation was the first half of this year, when lumber was almost double or over double of what it had been. Those kinds of things are going to have those impacts. And we're seeing many areas where there's issues in the supply chain that are causing this. And again, this is not political. This isn't how we solve the problems. This is just, hey, this is where we're at today. And of course, that supply chain has an impact on housing starts. And if you take a look at this March 2021 numbers, this is California housing starts. Single family homes is the blue line. If you notice in March, so in the first half of this year, those dipped. And again, when lumber doubled, a lot of these builders probably said, hey, we're going to take a break, because paying twice as much for a critical raw material for our products is double. We're gonna press pause for a little bit, and that's what they did. That's why you see the number of housing starts dipped substantially over the and even though it decreased a little bit the second half of last year. Again, that was probably a little bit of the COVID stuff. Things were starting to pick up. It was still strong, but yeah, when a 2x4 went from $3 to $10, you could easily do the math and see why they stopped that. Now, we've seen an uptick on the second half of this year, which is good. Now, it's not necessarily related to housing starts, though it does have something in the new home build. So going back to supply chains, there's a lot of supply chain issues that are impacting the housing market. In that, say for example, new homes may be delayed because of certain components. Like a good example, I've got a client that's in contract on a new home build. His completion date delayed a month because of windows and appliances. There's also those issues. So there's a number of things that are delaying that, and that kind of gets to one of the components to our inventory is, our inventory is still really low. And even though we've seen an uptick in the number of homes sold, now this is right here, if you can see right there, this is in the Sacramento metro area, El Dorado, Placer, and Sacramento counties. We saw an increase in number of homes sold year over year, over 25,000 homes sold. Now this for sale, that's a snapshot in time. That is right now, or at least as of 12/14/2021. That's the number of homes actively for sale on that day. Compared to that same day in 2020, there's more homes for sale, which is good. Though we're seeing that the inventory has not affected the inventory substantially, because if you look down here, these numbers right here, the month's inventory, that's to explain that. is if no new inventory comes on the market at current demand, how long will it take to completely deplete inventory? Last year it was half a month. This year it's 0.6 of a month. So, you see 20% increase and you think, wow. You look at the absolute number, it's still pretty crazy. And of course, one of those things that we look at too in the world of inventory or in the world of demand is that cumulative days on market. That's what CDOM means. We sold homes in the Sacramento metro area, averaged over this year, roughly half the time it took to sell a house this year than last year. And even last year's number of 30 across all the counties, of those 3 counties, across all price point sizes, whatnot, 30 days is still, that's smoking. 16, that's a wildfire blaze. So again, just kind of give you an idea, and you probably had a little inkling of this, but at least we're tying it all together here. And what does that mean to us? You're right. We saw prices go up in the 3 counties 20% year over year. Yeah, I know it stings. If you're buying your first home, yeah, it's a bit of a, it can be a hard pill to swallow. And one of the good things about that though is we've had really good mortgage rates. I mean, in this year, they've been hovering between 2.5 and 3 some odd percent. And the nationwide number is about right now, actually it was yesterday when I took the snapshot. The nationwide number, according to the St. Louis Federal Reserve Bank, was 3.1% for a 30-year fixed mortgage. Still pretty darn good. And again, that's the silver lining in this very hyper competitive housing market. And so, that's really kind of where we've been. And well, where do we go from here? Well, I did my own artwork. Thank you very much. That crystal ball, a little murky, but let's give it a try, okay? I'm sorry. So looking at 2022 and the top table, that's California numbers supplied by California Association of Realtors, or CAR. And then down below is the nationwide numbers provided by the National Association of Realtors. What you can see on both, this is kind of interesting. They're both expecting a decrease in the number of homes sold. In California, they're forecasting about 5% fewer homes selling in California. Nationwide, they're expecting about 1.7, just under 2% fewer homes selling next year. They're both expecting an increase in median price. In California, they're expecting about 5%. I should have circled that, but I circled the absolute number. They're expecting about a 5% increase. Nationwide, they're expecting just under 3%. And California also, it was nice. They're forecasting about a 3.5% interest rate, going from 3 to 3.5%. Hey, you know what? It'll have an impact, but it's still darn pretty good. So, what does this all mean? Well, going back to what we talked about earlier, inventory. Less inventory. This is what it comes down to, is we'll have less inventory. I think the decrease, that might be somewhat natural. I mean, we've had a very substantial amount of home purchases. They ebb and flow. Though if we would have seen a decrease in the number of homes sold and an increase in price, that means the demand is still strong, but they're expecting a tighter supply. So, is it going to be as crazy as next year? Who knows? I mean, the 3.5%, if we see our interest rates go up 0.5 point, that's going to have an impact. Say, for example, on a $500,000 loan, every half point is about $140-ish a month more. On a $750,000 loan, that's about, it's like $215, $220 a month. So every half point, you can expect your payment obligation to increase in those numbers. So, again, if you're looking at a $500,000 loan, which would be maybe a $600,000 purchase if you're doing like a traditional, but even to say a $500,000 loan, not taking into account insurance, tax, or mortgage insurance. This is just straight principal and interest. $140 more a month if that number goes up. You start coupling it with higher gas prices, food prices, it may have an impact. So if you're thinking about doing it, it might make sense to consider making it happen earlier than later, whether you're buying without selling or buying and selling. It may make sense while interest rates are still in the low threes. What else? Well, let's look at forecasting, like Conference Board forecasting about a 4% growth in wages. Who knows about inflation? It is an election year, so one can hope that maybe the people in Sacramento and in Washington, D.C. may decide to lay off the gas pedal on some of their legislation that may have impacts on inflation. And again, this is apolitical. I'm not here to advocate for one or the other, though we do have to admit that there is actions taken upon our leaders in Sacramento and in Washington, D.C. that do have those impacts on our bottom line when it comes to inflation, government spending, printing of money. Again, apolitical, just putting a few things out there. So really, at the end of the day, if you're thinking about making that move and you're unsure, even after looking at all these numbers and hearing me explain to you where we are and where we could be going, let's sit down. Let's look at your situation, because not everybody's situation is the same. Some may make sense to buy now. Some may make sense to not buy. Though, let's sit down and I'll be happy to put everything on the table and say, okay, hey, this is where we are. This is where we'd like to go. What can we do to build that roadmap to get from here to there? Be more than happy to do that. So all of my contact information is down below. Obviously, you can give me a call, shoot me a text, shoot me an email, and I'd be happy to sit down with you. No obligations, at least to help you get a better understanding. I really, really, really appreciate you taking the time to join me on this. And I want to wish you the best. Best Christmas, best holiday season, best New Year's ever. Let's make 2022 a great year. And until then, thank you very much and have a wonderful day.